After the tragic events of last session, I think our heroes needed some time to collect themselves. Even after the 2 IRL weeks since Rock's death, it still felt pretty fresh. I really had no idea what to expect in regards to planning when preparing this session, so I left things pretty open on my end. I know we had 2 party members infected with ghoul fever that probably wanted to deal with that. The town was still expecting to present the group with support on the upcoming Mourning. Sesto needed to be reintroduced to the group, and Ornifex wanted to become sanctified. So I put my efforts into preparing these aspects and left the rest to improv and the accessibility of having a fully prepared module. Hello, Skull here. Welcome to the campaign diary for session 16 of the Abomination Vaults. Before we get back into the action, I wanted to talk about pacing for a moment. Unlike books, films, or video games, tabletop RPGs are at the mercy of randomness, and progress isn't scripted in an intentionally satisfying way. However, we're still telling stories, and we're subconsciously programmed to recognize the way that those stories are supposed to progress. In regards to the death of a main character, typically this event is followed by a lull in the action to mourn their passing, and the heroes will then make smoother progress for a little while. This can be really hard to achieve in a tabletop RPG because the players are at the mercy of their dice. However, they likely still have this instinct in them. The cues and tropes of storytelling will nudge their actions towards those story tropes, not realizing the danger this might put them in as their dice let them down where the stories they're used to would say they should succeed. So, what can we do as GMs in this situation? Well, in the event of a character death, the party typically takes one of 2 actions. Either they pull back for a little bit to reassess the situation and mourn their fallen ally, or they push on, driven by revenge or a looming threat. If they pull back, I recommend you fully support them and allow them to. Give them their small wins, avoid throwing any new surprises or plot hooks at them, and allow them to take the reins for the session. If they want to have a funeral, great, everything goes smoothly. If they want to go to the tavern for a drink, the rowdier drunks just happen to not be there today. If your players need a session to just roleplay and forget about the looming threat for a short while, give them that time. However, if your party decides it's time to push, time to kill their way through the enemy, time to get their shit done, then you need to support that too. This is the part of the story where the party takes things seriously and the story takes them seriously in return. If they begin to harass a bad guy's minions for information, they should get that information. If they decide to take out an officer in a villain's army, they smash through them. The group has just faced the worst kind of failure. If they now get to succeed for a session, that isn't a threat to your story, it's the natural progression of excellent storytelling. Mechanically, as a GM, you can achieve this by doing a few things. Firstly, begin this following session with 2 or even 3 hero points on all your characters. This minimizes the chance of failing an important intimidation roll or whiffing a crucial ambush strike. Secondly, be a little bit generous with your DCs. Unless they're trying to do something insanely difficult, reduce the DC to an easy, achievable level. You can also accomplish this by fudging secret checks in their favor if you're comfortable with it. It amounts to basically the same thing. Lastly, roleplay your NPCs as being a little more cooperative and kind than they might usually be. Typically, people can tell when somebody is upset or distressed, so whether this takes the form of empathy or fear of pushing them too far, your NPCs should be particularly receptive to the party today. I hope that makes sense and that I've explained it well. If you have any questions or thoughts about this topic, then please leave a comment below. Now, let's pick things back up with our heroes. Exhausted, bloodied, and out of breath, Milo, May, and Ornifex paused at the top of the staircase to the servants' quarters to catch their breath and to check what had just happened.
Is it gone?
I
Okay,
don't
are
know.
we okay?
Keep running. We need to get out of here.
Okay. Frog's definitely down, right?
He's
gone.
dead.
Right. Okay.
Like dead, actually dead.
Right.
It just snuffed him out.
Alright.
Like a candle.
Right. If he's definitely gone, then I guess priority is us just getting out now. Then we can deal with that in a minute.
They began to retreat further, deciding to leave the Gauntlet entirely and make for their base camp. Along the way, they ran into Sesto, who had been returning from checking on his father. I had placed Sesto back in the gauntlet on the off chance they'd wanted to continue exploring or got into a fight, which is why this meeting felt a little bit out of place and jarring. They hurried him along with them, and as they made their rushed escape, told Sesto of Rock's death. As they arrived at their base camp, the group sat down and discussed the events that had transpired.
So, yeah, Rock didn't make it. Don't know what happened, but a ghoul like touched him and then he just dropped. Milo said he definitely saw that he died, but yeah.
Yeah, he didn't. He didn't drop like usual.
Like some kind of death magic.
I guess so. Just one moment he was alive, next moment he was just, ragdoll on the ground.
Could have said it a bit better than saying it like that, but who do we tell? Does he have any next of kin back home?
No, the next of kin he has is down there somewhere. Getting their soul ripped into pieces as we speak.
What was her name, Lily?
Had we not already decided that Rock would be returning as a ghoul, I would have been unsure what kind of resolution to give this side quest. Most of the encounters have been very personal to Rock, and as far as I remember, only Milo actually has been told the full story. This means our other heroes have very little connection to this NPC. Luckily, with Rock returning soon, I won't have to give this too much thought. The conversation soon turned towards next steps, specifically letting the town know what had happened to Rock. Rock had arrived in Atari only a few weeks before the adventure began, so he wasn't a particularly well-known member of the community. Aside from the party, the only people he had regular contact with were Yin Yasmira and Gregory Suresh, neither of which tended to be positive conversations. This revelation put a bit of a downer on the topic, and as they discussed getting his body back to bury it, they doubted whether they could even achieve that.
We couldn't handle that when there was 4 of us. And Rock was the strongest of us. I don't know how we're going to do that without going back to town and getting the guards to help.
I don't know either.
You were having a conversation. What were they saying? Did they say they were going to kill us?
You mean the ghouls?
Yeah, of course the ghouls.
Yeah, pretty much. I was trying to get us, see who they were working for, but I couldn't really figure that out.
She seemed mad though, and then took it out on Rock. Did you say?
I was just trying to be vague about our allegiances, but she pushed me to say something, and I bet on being, minions of Belcora, but that didn't work out. Seems like they're another faction.
May had taken Rock's death pretty hard, and her questioning of Milo threatened to take on a accusatory tone. Before things could escalate, Ornifex spoke up and reminded the group that the ghoul had referred to 2 of them as having ghoul fever. This shifted the conversation safely away from placing blame, and after checking on Milo and May, she confirmed that they did indeed have signs of ghoul fever. A successful medicine check allowed her to confirm how long they had before turning, that being just under a week at the soonest. She passed this information on to the infected members, and they discussed how they might deal with this dangerous disease.
Do you guys want to hear the good or the bad news first?
I guess go with the bad. It can't get any worse.
So,
Yeah.
the priestess actually was right. You both are infected with the ghoul fever. The good news is, though, it's still in really early stage, so... well, depending on how it goes, a little bit under a week, you might be ghouls. Or if your body is able to fight it, it's, okay. The problem is, though, I can't really help you with this. I can try treat you, but it's not guaranteed to be a success. And if the disease is to fully, incubate in your bodies, you will turn out to be a ghoul as well.
I think Bryn can help with this if we're back in town. I think she's skilled at solving magical illnesses. I guess we need to head there next time we're back.
The question is, we are in a dire state. I'm not sure what we could achieve here currently. I'm worried that when you get more infected, it will be harder and harder for you to keep your normal mortal form before you become a ghoul.
Well, I mean, I assumed we were going back now, right? Since we need to tell them what happened to Rob.
May was adamant about returning to town, partially to deal with the ghoul fever, but mostly to let people know what had happened. When the group hesitated, May began to get a bit upset.
Well, who? The mayor?
Just everyone who knew him. They have a right to know.
I don't know who knew him.
He wasn't the most open individual.
So what if I died here, you would just carry on. You wouldn't go and have time to process, time to show heart. Just because he didn't have anyone, he has us. And I think we need to show him that we cared.
Yeah, I agree. Which is why I want to, figure out a way to go down there, avenge him, and bring his body back.
I think we need to go back to town first to
Yeah,
not kill him,
certainly.
though.
But I don't know what, I don't know who we'd tell. As far as I know, nobody in town was anyone to him.
Even though we may not know his favorite person here in town, we could still just mention it to our beloved ones.
Regardless of their goals in town, the group decided to return to Atari. They headed to Rin's to let her know what had happened, and also to see what she could do about their disease. As they woke Rin up, she could tell something had happened from the group's dour atmosphere.
Something's happened. We'll fill you in on everything, but one of our group didn't make it.
See her face go pale. She glances across. Rock?
A nod.
God damn it. What happened?
It was a ghoul. It just touched him. He was gone. There was nothing we could do.
I see. That is not good news. Ghouls? There are ghouls in the Gauntlet?
Yeah, quite a lot of them, in fact.
How have we not known?
I don't know.
So close to town. This is absurd.
When was the last time anyone delved deep?
Well, it's been a long time since anybody even visited the Gauntlet. It's well regarded as being picked clean, and nobody knew about the areas below.
Which means they could have been there for a long time. It doesn't look like they've been venturing far, so to speak. They are quite content being down there. They're doing something, though.
What are they squatting in caves? What's down there? Rin took Rock's death quite hard, feeling responsible as the one who had sent them up there in the first place. Her response was to learn what she could in order to help the group become better prepared. She drilled the group for information about what they'd found below, and as they told her about the library and the ghouls, she realized just how big this all was. Our heroes theorized that these ghouls had been working for the original Belcora and had continued their work, which is close to the truth in fairness. I wanted to get the group thinking about their previous assumptions and make them reassess them in order to find the path forward. Essentially, I wanted to know where their success portion of the post-death narrative would come in. I had Rin ask about the Darklands, as originally the group had assumed that the areas below the ruins would be an access point to the Darklands. I take it you didn't find the Darklands down there then? It's actually a built fortress of some kind.
Yeah, so far. It might reach all the way to the Darklands, but it hasn't yet. But I would be surprised if there weren't connections to it from there.
Well, that would explain how the ghouls and Mitflits and those creatures found their way there.
Yeah. And who knows how many of them are remnants of Belcora's vanguard. But something down there is definitely using the tower. Like the lighthouse in a way that it was used historically. At least according to all of the depictions of it we've seen in the chapel and in the outbuilding.
Yeah, somebody must have fired it.
Yeah, and they're charging it. So it's some kind of operation.
They're charging it actively, currently.
Yes. Yeah. We encountered a funnel of negative energy. And Rock, he stepped into it for some reason. I think because he sensed some kind of connection to the one he was looking for down there. But yeah, it was definitely, he said something about their soul. So it seems like they're siphoning negative energy off of living subjects. Necromancy, basically, as far as I can tell.
So how long until they fire it again? When the conversation moved past the Darklands and onto the strange ribbon of power, I had Rin mention that the Gauntlet would likely fire again, hoping this would motivate them to push on. However, Rock's death seemed to have truly shaken them, and even this wasn't enough to get them to push towards action. At this point, Ornifex spoke up and mentioned the Ghoul Fever. This is something that Rin is able to immediately help with, so she went straight to work. Typically, I'd want to charge for something like this. However, with the context of recent events, it would have felt in very poor taste to ask for money, and providing this service for free felt like an appropriate story beat. Rin cast Remove Disease, a pre-remaster spell that allows the caster to try and counteract a disease. I think the spell was collated into the Cleanse Affliction spell in the remaster. Now, I will say the counteracting rules are incredibly confusing, and I still have no idea how they work. You roll against a target DC, but passing doesn't mean it actually worked. Once you get a success or a crit success, you still need to compare the check against the counteract rank. Honestly, I have no idea. So when Rin made the checks and rolled a 19 and a 26, I kind of just assumed that these were good enough for a DC 15 disease. If anybody's able to explain these in a way that actually makes some kind of sense, then please leave a comment, because I have no idea. Either way, the Ghoul Fever was cleansed from both me and Milo. Usually I like letting diseases run their course and having them magicked away can feel quite cheap, but in this case, the ghouls had already received their toll in the form of Rock's death, and having the players face long-term debuffs from the Ghoul's Fever would have felt needlessly cruel in these circumstances. With the topic of Ghoul Fever on their minds, our ghouls took a moment to discuss what might happen to somebody who is infected with Ghoul Fever and dies. Suddenly, the idea that they might have to fight and kill an undead form of Rock became a very real possibility to them.
I just hope he isn't down there moving about.
I mean, in a kind of horrible way, isn't it better if he is?
No.
Means his body's not right where it got nearly wiped out ourselves.
No, you mean it might be easier to kill him and bring it back up here?
Yeah, as horrible as that is.
Yeah. Silver lining, I guess.
Although now we will have to kill him again, possibly, to do that. Other
That's
than just
not-
destroying Trio.
That's not Rock anymore.
No.
Let's just hope it doesn't come to this.
Exhausted, our heroes said goodbye to Rin and retreated to May's caravan for some much-needed rest and healing. Milo spent some time researching ghouls, while Ornifex left early and headed over to the Dawnflower Library. She sought out Vandy and began to speak with her about how she can better support her allies.
Hi, Wendy.
Hello, how are we doing today?
Actually, not that good. Could I talk to you in private, maybe for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, I will sit down then and explain to her very roughly that we lost someone in our travels and that people got diseased and that I could not help but without mentioning explicitly that it was schools, so no one gets panic.
Okay.
And my problem is that in all this time, I just felt so useless. Like, I couldn't help them, I couldn't even cleanse the disease from them. And I feel like my bond with the stars, with the cosmic caravan, is not strong enough. And I don't really know what to do. Is there anything that could help me?
A lot of the problems that Ornifex spoke about were simply due to her level and would be resolved by accessing new spells or feats. She actually does have a way of helping with diseases via the Cleanse Affliction spell. However, as a new player, I think she's overlooked this or been looking for Remove Disease specifically, since that's what Rin used. However, part of her troubles are due to not being sanctified. As far as I know, there's no official way to become sanctified once you choose to not be. However, I felt like this was a really good story beat for Ornifex, and I wanted to help her fulfill this goal. I'd already been planning a side quest that would allow her to become sanctified, although I hadn't been expecting her to pursue this so eagerly. As such, I began to move things along for her, realizing that this could become our group's success and progress point. My first goal for kicking this off was to push her into talking to Rin about it. In my planning, I intended to have Rin notice the waning connection in Ornifex's faith and then begin the quest that way, but having Ornifex seek out answers herself worked just as well. Well, I guess when you follow a pantheon like you do, you don't have the direct connection to a single deity, which is fine. That's of course okay, but I can see why you might struggle to grab the right message necessarily when you've got all these different gods sort of giving you different information and different goals in life. So I guess maybe you need to figure out who you need of that pantheon to push you forward and maybe sanctify you. I know Rin is a follower of the Cosmic Caravan as well. Maybe she could help you connect with them on a more deep level. As for stopping diseases and things, it's just a case of getting stronger. Really, you just got to keep going, working hard, and finding your way in life. Ornifex did end up buying 3 scrolls of Cleanse Affliction from Vandy before exiting and heading home for the night. Meanwhile, Sesto took to the streets in an attempt to gather information. He asked about town on the topic of ghoul activity in the area. With no recorded ghoul activity within or around Atari, he managed to confirm that wherever the cult of Kanka came from, it certainly wasn't the town. As the day came to a close, I gave our party 30 XP for their various activities and research towards future goals. I fear this came across as pity experience a bit, which wasn't my intention, although they still accepted it, so it's fine. As morning came, the group knew that today was the day that the townsfolk would be gathering to present support towards their efforts. This isn't something that happens in the adventure path, however, it's something that I put together to both show the town's gratefulness, as well as to catch them up on the 50 GP that Rock had turned down for the Osprey Club side quest. I'd prepared 50 gold pieces worth of useful items that would be presented to our heroes. Rock's untimely death had unfortunately changed the vibe of the whole event, though. As our heroes gathered, they began to discuss telling the town what had happened to their fallen ally.
Like, I know we agreed to tell people about Rock.
We can't just get up there and lie.
I was thinking, given the energy in the crowd, and yeah, it's probably not the best idea to bring down the mood with such a announcement.
What are we gonna say then? When they wonder where he is?
One of us has to stay there to keep an eye on things.
Ah, I guess so. I don't
I'm gonna
know.
just stare at Sesto. What? You want to lie about what happened?
Not really.
He died. And you
Yeah.
want to tell people that he hasn't. I mean, I get it, you want to protect them, but this is the reality of it.
It was just a mere suggestion.
Yeah. But I'm with me on this one.
Look, I can see where you're coming from. You just care a lot about the town and the people in it. I see that, but we've got to do what's right by him. And I get it puts you in an awkward situation with your family and everything I went on with your dad, but I don't think it's fair.
I'm
to
just
brush him
remembering the
aside.
panic from the aftermath of when the graveyard attack happened.
People need to know.
Fair.
Yeah.
As I said, just voicing a concern.
Like, if it goes wrong, if something awful happens and the day's ruined and everyone's moods are sunken, I'll take responsibility for it, but I just can't do that to him.
But I think he'd care. But yeah, I agree.
Let's go up then and tell them.
As our heroes approached, Mem and Hemmers began a speech informing the town that our heroes had agreed to solve this mystery of the Gauntlet and keep the town safe from further attacks. The group walked onto the makeshift stage, and one by one, familiar townsfolk presented them with gifts. Rin offered training in the skills needed to become a ghost hunter. If a player chooses to take her up on this offer, they will gain access to the Ghost Hunter archetype in this and future games. Vandy gifted them with 3 bottles of holy water and a scroll of Sanctify. Tamale Tandeville, the owner of the fishery and the first person to hire them as adventurers, gave them 14 rations. Morlabint of the Odd Stories bookshop gave them a tome of undead research titled Putting Bones to Bed. This is a homebrew item that gives the group a +2 item bonus check on the next 3 recall knowledge checks that are related to undead topics. And finally, Magiloy, Ornifex's cousin, gave them a lesser Bravo's brew. The original intent with this scene was to remind them of their allies and those that they had helped. Sadly, due to recent events, it became an uncomfortable and guilt-ridden parade of items that are coming too late to be useful. Once the final gift had been received, Menhemmers looked to the party to update the town on their progress, clearly expecting a positive report. I think now we should get our report on how things are going from our heroes here.
Right. Yeah. So I'll step forwards a bit and look out over the beautiful people. Thank you for these generous gifts. It's heartening to know that we have the support of the town behind us as we venture deep into the unknown. You see, unbeknownst to most people, there are not merely caverns beneath the Godlight, there are catacombs and probably the majority of the fortress still beneath ground, undisturbed for 500 years or so, potentially. At least from above ground. It seems like most things down there have come from further below, and the efforts are quite grueling. And as such, it saddens me to say that despite the progress that we've been making, steady such as it has been, we we have lost a member of our party to the Gauntlet. Rock, he didn't make it. There are dangerous things down there, things we didn't know we would encounter, things we weren't prepared for. But now we know, and it's yeah.
I didn't want to make the group feel worse than they already did, however, this was clearly not the news that the town had been expecting. Nervous murmuring broke out across the crowd, and Menhemmers stepped forward to try and take control of the situation. Not to worry, folks. As they said, they're still making progress, and this is obviously an unfortunate loss, but they're going to keep working hard, and this will all be resolved soon. Thank you. Please go back to your tasks for the day.
That's right. And I'll take a step forward again. Suddenly, passion relit. We will not let his death be in vain. We will get to the bottom of this.
With that, the crowd began to disperse. As the group stood on stage, they saw someone rushing through the crowd towards them and quickly identified them as Gregory, Milo's father. Milo immediately bolted, fully just running away. Sesto tried to help by having Tiny get in his way, but Gregory was furious and publicly kicked the Eidolon aside. This caused several gasps and stares from the remaining crowd, and while it wasn't enough to stop him, the public shame did make him hesitate a little bit. Sesto and Milo fled into town while May and Ornifex stayed behind on the stage. Gregory, upon reaching the edge of the stage, immediately accosted them. Where the fuck is he?
I'm sorry. I'm not sure who you're talking about.
Milo! Where is he?
I
I'm
will
pretty
look
sure.
around. I think he's already gone. If he isn't here.
Where's he staying?
As his father, should you not know that?
You see his fist clench, and there's he has to quite clearly hold himself back from throwing a punch. By law, I'm looking for a missing person at this point. Where is he?
Look, we've all been through a hell of a lot in the past few hours. Now is really not the time to take out your frustrations on him. I'm sure he's gone somewhere to mourn the loss of his friend, who is being a much more caring person than you have ever been.
Make a diplomacy check. You see him, again, clench his fists and look very angry, but as he glances around, there's people from the crowd still here who are watching him yelling at you, and you see the need to save face kind of kick in, and without saying anything else, he just scowls and marches away, clearly still looking for Milo, but without much to go on right now. With Gregory dealt with for now, May addressed those that remained in the crowd.
Sorry, I could have a moment of your time for anyone that cares to listen, but on the topic of what happened to Rock, we know he wasn't a very sociable character in our town, but he was a member of our town, and no one deserves to pass without recognition. So I was hoping that we could have a small memorial for him in the coming days. If anyone's willing to help me organize it, that would be appreciated, since we're going to be up at the Gauntlet. there's not really much I can do on the ground, but I would appreciate any help.
I think I played this badly. I had people nod in response, but since people didn't really know Rock, volunteers were scarce. Yin Yasmir approached and said that her and the Osprey Club would put up a grave for him, but this didn't really satisfy me, and as the conversation came to a close, she actually asked Rin a question that made me feel quite guilty about how the town had reacted.
I mean, it's not about the risk, it's not about the event, it's not about them, it's not even about us. It's about what happened to somebody who was trying to help. I just feel like people aren't they're taking him for granted. Just because he's not one of the people who they cared for doesn't mean he's deserved to be swept under a rug.
Absolutely. You're right. I think the town shows its true colours at a time like this.
I have to say, they're not really colours that I want to associate myself with any longer than I have to. Is there any chance after this you'd be willing to move on?
Perhaps it'd be a bit of an ordeal moving up shop at this time, but maybe we can talk about it once things have calmed down a bit. What had been intended as a chance for the heroes to see the good they're doing had ultimately made them disenchanted with the town. This was a tough spot to be in as a GM, as I'm now going to have to take steps to shift that energy in the future sessions. If the group doesn't feel appreciated, they're going to struggle to push forward and risk their lives in defense of Atari. OneFX also wanted to speak with Rin about her faith, so the pair retreated to her shop. Once they were settled down, Ornifex began to explain the problem.
So I feel like I'm not doing a great job, like generally. I don't feel I'm aligned enough with the stars, and I thought maybe you could help me getting sanctified.
Oh, okay. Maybe. I can certainly initiate a ritual that would get you closer to them. But it usually comes with a fair amount of risk. It's not always safe. You will likely need your allies with you to accomplish it safely.
Okay.
I also can't predict how it's going to manifest, so I can't give you any kind of warning as to what you're going to experience. But I can come along with you and help guide. Knowing this would be a long encounter, I had Rin suggest Ornifex collect her group for protection during the ritual, so she did just that. As she collected her allies, Sesto had returned home to speak with his mother about what had happened. He wanted to make sure that she didn't worry about him. Hello, Sesto. You look so handsome on that stage. Good job.
Yeah. You were there? I didn't see you.
Oh, I gave it a quick look, and then hurried on home. We're going to make some pastries for the druids to sort of say thank you.
So I take you. Did you hear the news then?
Yes, your friends came by and told us. We did nip up and have a look. You were asleep at the time, so we didn't wake you. I'll be going up again soon and taking them these thank you pastries.
Right. Yeah.
Is everything
So
okay?
at the moment, yes. One of those friends you probably met, Rock. Did you meet Rock?
Oh, I think he stood near the door a lot, but he never said anything.
Sounds like Rock. I wasn't there myself. I was still up with the druids and father, but apparently something happened while all my friends went back to the keep,
Oh?
and Rock hasn't come back.
Oh no. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you get on well?
Yes, we did. We're a group of adventurers, mother.
Oh, yeah,
If you're
of
not
course.
getting on well, then it doesn't work, does it?
I suppose. I'm just glad you've got friends. Well,
But you say you're going back up to the druids later. You're going to be there this evening.
yeah, I might stay there for a while and keep an eye on him. As the conversation progressed, Sesto and his mother agreed to meet at the druid's camp later for a meal, and to allow her to meet his fellow heroes. With that sorted, he made his way to Rin's, and the group convened for whatever ritual Rin was about to perform. As they arrived, Rin was finishing up a large magical circle comprised of many divine runes, as well as the symbols of each member of the Cosmic Caravan Gods. She had the group sit within the circle, and as she cast her spell for the following hour, upon its completion, the 4 heroes and Rin fell into a deep slumber. When the group awoke, they found themselves stood in a circular room. 8 doors were spread evenly along the walls, and 8 statues were grouped in the center. On each of the doors was a holy symbol of one of the Pantheon's gods. Each was beautifully crafted, with the exception of Grotus, whose symbol had been burned away and replaced with a jade crescent moon containing each stage of the lunar cycle in gold. This is the symbol of Tsukio, who has replaced Grotius in the Pantheon, a detail that Ornifex and Rin are not aware of. Each of the statues seemed to depict Ornifex in a various state or pose. This might be a fun game for some of you to follow along and see if you can figure out the answers to as our players explore this encounter. The information you'll need to know is as follows. Each statue represents one of the 8 gods' opinions on Ornifex, and should she ask them to sanctify her, shows the state in which they'll leave her. Going through the statues in no particular order, the first depicts Ornifex with warm, soft features. A single dazzling star sits on her forehead, and her feathers are tinted with greens and pinks, and seem as though they're almost made of light instead of physical material. In the second, she's depicted as peaceful and meditative. She stood in a meditative stance and always seems to be looking away from the viewer regardless of the angle they look at her from. The third depicts her as cracked and dead. She's curled on the ground with black smoke seeping from between the cracks. The fourth statue shows her in a flowing dress with thin scarves attached at the wrists. She's dancing with an expressionless face and seems physically smaller than her living counterpart. The fifth depicts her as a hulking, powerful creature. Her neck and back are covered in foaming bubbles of iridescent color. Her feathers seem more akin to stubby, writhing tentacles. In the sixth statue, Ornifex is nearly identical to her true self. However, she looks ever so slightly withered, and her feathers are dried and frail. The seventh shows her as taller and thinner. The feathers around her ears are pointed to mirror an elven set of ears, and she's otherwise plain and unremarkable. And in the final statue, Ornifex is depicted as polished and regal. She stands proudly with a crown of stars, and the tips of her wing feathers are glittered with stardust. You might be able to figure some of the answers out based on what you know of each god, and sure enough, Ornifex felt like she could also make some educated guesses herself. Rin explained that each statue represents what will happen if she asks the associated god to sanctify her. Some seem to sanctify her wholly, some seem to do nothing, one seems to sanctify her unholy, and one seems to result in her death. The issue is, there's no way of knowing for sure which statue represents each god. But that's where the doors come in. By entering each door, Ornifex will get the chance to speak to a manifestation of that god, during which she can try to figure out which statue might be theirs. However, meeting with the gods is never simple, and many come with a trial of sorts. With the rules established, Ornifex entered the door to Serenray's realm. The group found themselves in a grand cathedral with blindingly bright sunlight beaming through the stained glass windows. The room was uncomfortably hot for all except Ornifex, and at the far end of the hall stood the burning feminine shape of Serenray's aspect. Ornifex approached and fell to her knees, and as she began to speak with the god, small burning celestials emerged to curiously observe the remaining party members. They seemed non-hostile, but the sheer heat pouring off them caused our heroes to burn from proximity, and as they suddenly had to decide what to do, I called the session there. This was a difficult session to run. Our heroes took some time to mourn, which made it a battle on my part to keep things from becoming stagnant. May has clearly taken Rock's death hard, and her faith in the town has been shaken. It's on me now to redeem Atari and get our heroes back on track. All this was made worse by the fact that Rock isn't even actually gone. He may be dead, but he's coming back in the form of a ghoul, and since they've told the town of his death, this is going to make things very awkward for the group once people see him again. I think this sanctification quest will prove a nice break from the horror of the Gauntlet and will hopefully take their minds off things for a little bit. It's a chance to put Ornifex on the forefront of the party for a while, which should help her develop the confidence to jump into roleplay scenes more often. We've begun our second series on campaign diaries, and session 0 for the Crown of the Kobold King group is live now, with the first session coming very soon. If you're eager for more content, you can start enjoying that series now. If you want to show support, then liking, subscribing, and sharing this series with your friends is a great way to spread the love and get this channel out there. I appreciate you guys choosing to spend your time with me here. So until next time, I'll see you soon.